If you feel like God starts to reveal something to you that feels too good to be true, ask the next question. Stay curious. Dive into that further with him, because he will not leave it all up to you.
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9 to 5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you there's no way to live, way to live. Promise there's no way to live, way to live.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm Brooke Ackerman.
And I'm Denise Acosta.
And we are talking about the so fun topic of pride today. Doesn't that sound like such an uplifting and encouraging subject?
Pride and humility, I guess, is a better way to say what we're talking about today.
Oh, geez, sorry. I guess I didn't do a very good job.
I just feel like they go hand in hand.
Okay, so pride and humility. What lovely things do you have to say about those two things that go hand in hand?
I feel like I would have a lot to say about this, and I will.
That's good, because we're on a podcast.
Let's hope they can all form a cohesive thought. So first things that come to mind is, what does it look like? Have you ever met someone who you're giving them compliments? Maybe they just accomplished something great and you're like, wow, terrific job. That was amazing. And they're like, oh, no, I really wasn't. I'm really not that great. Or they're like minimizing themselves. And maybe they really do believe that about themselves. Or maybe they're fishing for compliments. And I feel like we've all at least met someone like that, or maybe that person is us.
A friend of mine, and I do this sometimes just because it makes me think of her and it makes me laugh. And I do this completely as a joke, not at all sincere. But when somebody says something nice to me, if I know them well, somebody who knows my sense of humor, if they say something nice to me, like some sort of compliment, I'll say, go on. No, really, go on. Like, please continue. So when you said that they might actually be fishing for a compliment, that's what it made me think of. Because yes, but that's not sincere. That's purely a joke.
I'll do the whole hair flip sometimes.
Yes.
That is also a joke, you guys. Don't take that seriously.
The Zendaya. Mm-hmm. Double flip. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Or what's her name?
Glinda.
Yes.
Galinda. Toss toss.
Galinda.
Toss toss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I saw a meme at some point on the internet in the last year or so, and it was something about there was a celebration of some sort, maybe even a graduation, and somebody was giving the graduate flowers, and they were like, congratulations on such an accomplishment. Maybe it was a master's, I don't know. But the person was backtracking and making themselves small. And so what the response was is, I'm going to give you your flowers, and it's up to you if you want to water them. And I was like, oh,
dang.
Man,
That's
like
good.
How often have we done that? I definitely have for most of my life. And it's not humility. It's definitely still pride. But making yourself that low and that being attributed or being one side of the coin of pride was definitely a newer concept to me that I had not considered until maybe 5-ish years ago. I started kind of hearing about it, and I was just so mind blown. Because you could tell me I did a great job on something and I would definitely be like, oh, no, it's nothing, or no big deal. Or I'd put myself down, and not because I was fishing for compliments, but because I really believed that about myself. And I held myself back from a lot of things because of that. It was very detrimental to my growth and certainly to my identity, for sure.
Did you ever find yourself wanting to accept the compliment but feeling like you weren't supposed to, or you weren't allowed? Or was it really just 100%, no, I don't think I'm good enough to receive that?
I didn't feel like I was good enough to receive it. I wanted to be good enough to be at a place where I could receive it.
Yeah.
Is what it felt like for me.
Yeah, I was definitely taught, and I don't think it was meant in any sort of negative way, but I was taught that was humility, to say, no, it's not that big a deal. It's a really bad definition of what humility looks like, but that was modeled for me. Again, it was well-intentioned, but it was deeply ingrained in me. Don't be arrogant. don't be cocky, don't showboat, don't show off, whatever version of that. And so not surprising because it happens often with things like this, I went 180 degrees in the other direction and could never say, thank you so much for those kind words. Thank you for those flowers. And yes, it is up to me how to water them. It was just, no, don't.
Please don't let anybody see you saying that or giving that to me.
Any version of that, I didn't want to be perceived as arrogant because that was a huge no. Don't ever be arrogant. And it's not that black and white. It's not one or the other. There's all this area in between of what humility looks like. And
Yeah.
I had such bad definitions of both pride and humility.
For sure. I mean, I definitely did too. I feel like at some point I must have been taught the same because I can't pinpoint necessarily how that came to be. Well, I can pinpoint something, so we'll save that for another day.
Send us an email at prodigalpeas@gmail.com. Hey, Denise, what you talking about?
Early traumas. All right. But I remember wanting to feel, because there are times when people would get complimented and they would say thank you, and I never saw anything wrong with that. I never was like, oh, they're so prideful, I can't believe them, they're so arrogant. But why did I think that for me? And then I went through a whole transition. So okay, then someone was, you're making the other person feel awkward because now they're questioning whether or not their belief in you should be questioned. It was this whole other
Went all the way on the other direction.
And I was, I don't want to make the other person feel awkward. I'm already awkward. We can't have two awkward people here. And so I learned to just say thank you. But it was, it was a very weird thank you. I would just be like, thank you. And nobody knew what to do with that.
If you're not watching, you really missed this deadpan expression. Like there was no expression on her face at all.
I literally would have to coach myself in my head. Okay, Denise, just say thank you. Just accept it. Be nice. They're being nice. Just accept it and move on. And so I think outwardly you could probably see that I'm having a mental conversation with myself. And then I would say thank you, but it wasn't like, oh, thank you so much. It wasn't a confident thank you. It was very much like I had to rehearse saying two words, and it just took up all this time to say it just so that you don't feel awkward. But now we're all awkward because what was that? So there's been a lot of, I don't know if even exploring is the word because not an intentional journey there, but just hearing different perspectives. And I knew my way of thinking was off, but then I didn't know how to fix it and I didn't know what the right thing was either. So then you start navigating and checking out other points of views and maybe just ways to take that conversation, some helpful and some not. Yeah. This is going to be a really fun episode, you guys, because this is definitely, like I said, this is a newer concept to me in life. And so I have a better perspective on things now. But just when I look back and think on all that, I wonder if any of my friends are still feeling that way. And I don't want them to feel that way. Let's talk about it, you guys.
And so we can have another episode of being responsible for other people's emotions. That can be another conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not holding it as a responsibility, but if I can help, I would like to. The information is out there, you guys. So today we're going to unpack that kind of thinking. And while it feels like it's humbling, it's actually not. It's just the other side of the coin of pride, which you may recall Brooke talking about that in a previous episode, and what that does to us and how it ends up affecting our calling.
The first time that I heard somebody talk about how having low self-esteem, that is still a version of pride, my mind was blown. I had never thought of it that way until they went on with their explanation, because pride is an over-focus on self. And when you have low self-esteem, you're still overly focused on yourself. You are just telling yourself really terrible things about yourself, whereas pride, in the stereotypical sense we think of as being arrogant, puffing yourself up, saying that you're better than everybody else, but it's still all focused on you. And if you're telling yourself you're terrible, you'll never amount to anything, you're not worth receiving, that's still overly focused on self. And so if we continue to focus on which one am I, we're still we're still looking at the problem. And so the focus needs to shift. Low self-esteem is not better than arrogance. They're both pride. And so rather than focusing on which version, we need to shift the focus.
Yeah, that low self-esteem super resonates over here. It was crippling. Oh my gosh, the overfocus of self. I would be afraid to sign up to an event and be there because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this girl, and what is she wearing? And what does she look like? And she can't do the thing. And it's just probably nobody would have even known that I was there. And I'm over here stressed out about any possible thing, or they're going to ask me something and then I'm not going to answer it correctly. And it was crippling, you guys. It was bad. And so, yeah, the idea that that was pride was like, what do you mean? I don't think I'm anything. Pride is when you think you're like creme de la creme, that you're just the best thing out there. And that's not what I'm doing. So how is that pride? But yeah, it's the overfocus of self. And that's been an interesting journey, a very helpful journey to go through and learn about.
Did you find yourself, because I mean, same, not surprising that you and I had such similar experiences, but did you find yourself would you over apologize for things that were not at all anything that you would need to apologize for, but you would say, oh, I'm so sorry for something that was nothing that was yours?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's like, oh my gosh, it's really windy outside. Like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Right.
What am I, controlling the wind?
If you are, I want to have a conversation because I want to know how you're doing that.
Bring some of that back because it's too hot.
Yeah. So it's just, I wanted to make sure that we talked about some of the ways that can look, because over apologizing or finding ways, and it blows my mind that we would find ways, not at all intentionally, but to make yourself small, to minimize you in whatever way. And so, yeah, when somebody says something kind and you're doing the whole, oh no, it wasn't that big a deal, or, oh my goodness, because we can make it sound real spiritual, right? Oh, that was all the Lord. Was it? Because I think you were the one who was talking, or you were the one that was doing the thing. Yes, give God credit for what is God's, but if he's choosing to work through you, that's not all the Lord. You did play a role in that. And I think it's interesting how we tend to swing from one extreme to the other, but there is really space in the middle. And so, yeah, over apologizing, diminishing anything that I was contributing to a conversation or to whatever, I agree with you, very crippling. And so it's not authentic. To be puffed up and arrogant is not authentic, but to minimize yourself to the point of, no, don't even look in my direction, not authentic.
No, and it makes everyone else uncomfortable too. It just does. Nobody wants, I won't say nobody wants to be around that, but you know what I mean?
It does, it makes it hard. It does make it hard to want to be around somebody who's always deflecting. This conversation that I had with somebody it's not a hugely defining, it's not a big important event, but it shifted things for me in a way that stuck with me. We were out with friends and they wanted to go get frozen yogurt. And these were friends who were a little bit older than us. It was like one of those situations where we're like, we're going to pay, like we're going to buy. And so John and I, hi John.
Hi John.
We're out getting frozen yogurt with this family and we put our little cups up there to pay. And they said, no, we'll get this. And I did the learned response of, no, you don't have to. It's okay. And their daughter, who was a teenager at the time, I will never forget her saying this to me. And it was very kind. She looked at me and she said, why would you want to take away this opportunity that they want to bless you? They want to do this for you. Don't take away that opportunity from them.
Oh,
right?
A child. That's not what I was saying at that age.
But I could feel something inside me, like sort of break apart in a good way. It was this thing that had formed that was not correct. It was an incorrect view. It was something that wasn't authentic. And just that little phrase, just that little interaction just entirely crumbled that. And I looked at her and I was like, you're right. Thank you so much. And I looked at her parents and I said, thank you for offering to pay for the frozen yogurt. And from that day on, it was still uncomfortable at times, but I have learned to just say, thank you so much. Because when I'm in that position and I want to do something kind for somebody, it makes me feel like, it almost makes me feel unappreciated if the person's going, no, it's okay. You don't have to. Like, no, I wouldn't say it. Yeah. I wouldn't offer if it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I'm handing you your flowers. You choose whether to water them or not, or how you're going to water them. Yeah. Grace, I don't think you listened to this, but I'm just saying, Grace, thank you so much because you shifted a major thing for me.
Thanks, Grace. While you were talking, I was thinking about the moments that that's happened to me, and what I'm like, no, you don't have to do that, came very much from just things that I was hearing growing up. You don't want people to think that you can't afford your own stuff.
Well, you could have just stopped that. You don't want people to think, right? Like, whatever the rest of that thought is in any situation.
Throw it away.
Yes.
Throw it away, you guys.
Because we can't control that.
Right. And sometimes people do just want to be nice and they just want to bless you and all that. And so anyway, we got to stop thinking about us in that moment. Another thing I was thinking about was self-deprecating humor. I'm reminded of the movie Pitch Perfect. If you've seen it, Fat Amy. And so she has that conversation where they're like, well, why do you say Fat Amy and not just Amy? It's because if they're already saying it behind my back, like I beat them to it, basically. And don't quote me because that's obviously not verbatim for what she said, but more or less that's kind of how the conversation went. And so, yeah, that's where a lot of self-deprecating humor comes from. And I definitely used to do a ton of that too. And, oh, it's so funny and ha. And then, but no, it's not. It's not actually.
Yeah. It's like she said, it's a version of self-protection because you're going to beat them to the punch. You're going to put yourself down before they can.
Right.
Ugh. Awful. Let's throw that out too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've talked about some examples of pride and humility, or rather what we thought humility could have been. Let's talk a little bit more about humility. What do you have for us, Brooke?
The first time I ever heard somebody use the phrase false humility, that was one of those, again, what? I don't know if I know what you mean when you say that. We were in a class and the person who was teaching, and again, we don't necessarily realize it and we don't necessarily intend it, but this person felt they didn't want to come across as arrogant. And so they said a sort of self-deprecating comment about themselves, not wanting to compare themselves to somebody in the Bible and saying, they had Paul, but you just get me today. And so we'll try to fumble through this together. And somebody called them on it and said, that's false humility. Don't put yourself down. You really do have something to offer. You are a teacher in this class. And that was the first time I ever really felt like that the term and seeing it played out solidified for me. And it was almost a montage of memories happened of all the times that I had done something like that. Because again, I had a bad definition of humility. And I thought that was being humble, that was, if it wasn't being humble, it was at least not being arrogant. Mm-hmm. And that's true. That was the goal. Just don't be arrogant. And I didn't know what actual true humility looked like. Nobody ever really said, no, this is false humility. Here's actual true humility. So I just erred on the side of just don't be arrogant. Mm. So yeah, if you're doing things like, no, I'm not, it's all the Lord. No, it wasn't that big a deal. No, I'm not really that important. I'm really glad it went well because I wasn't really sure if it was going to. Just if somebody says, hey, you did a really nice job with that. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Stop sharing our conversations, Brooke.
Nice. Uh-huh. Little coaching session playing out right here in front of everybody.
Okay. So I want to talk about this with you guys.
So how about actual authentic humility? What's that look like?
What does it look like? It looks different for me these days. Like most things, it's all a journey. It's not what we think about ourselves. It's what God thinks about us. That's where we get our identity from. We can ask him, you guys, we can have that conversation, take a look and examine what we're carrying that is not ours, that wasn't intended for us to carry, that is not part of our identity. To accept a truth is humility. If God has called you into something specific and you have carried out that role and someone's telling you great job or whatever, you are a leader, for example, then to say that you are a leader is truth. It's not being arrogant. You're not exalting yourself. I feel like that's been a learning thing for me, and relying on God for that identity. So then you're not refusing to do certain things or avoiding certain responsibilities. Like for me in the past, I didn't want to have a title. I definitely stayed away from a role of a leader. And I didn't want it because if I don't have it, I don't have those responsibilities and I can't be held responsible when it all goes when it all goes to crap. And so, because I'm not good enough for that, and I'm not able to do that, and so I'm not that person. You need to get somebody else. And that's just a bunch of lies that I believed about myself. And so then you throw in that whole false humility, and it's just this very dark circle that you almost don't get out of. It's very hard to get out of. So nowadays it looks a little bit different for me. I'm not really nervous about a title anymore, which it used to. And that's I think while we were talking about this, I was thinking about that today. So I am, along with someone else in our jail ministry team, we are stepping up to take over leadership in the ministry. Our ministry lead is stepping down. He's retiring at 80. Shout out to Roger. So many years in doing this. He's amazing. And it's going to be big shoes to fill. But his title there was coordinator, ministry coordinator. And that's not what he did. That's not what I observed. In all the years that I've been in ministry, he was a leader. And so here I am, we're having these conversations, me and the co-lead, Jordan. Hey, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
And I keep calling it a co-lead. And so we have gotten into a couple conversations, and I can tell that there's an issue with that word in these conversations. And part of me is happy because this is the first time that I don't have an issue with that word, and that I have seen what this role has consisted of and what is involved. And that is what it is. It's a leadership role. And so I guess I felt really, it was redeeming for me. It was a redeeming moment for sure, to see how far I've at least come in my conversation about understanding humility and pride and false humility.
I like that you said, if this is what God says, then that's true. He can't say something that's not true. And so if he is saying this about you, then us agreeing with him, that's not arrogance. That's agreeing with our Creator. And one of the things that was really helpful for me as God was showing me all the different ways that I was being prideful in the vein of self-deprecation and thinking poorly of myself was somebody pointed out to me that if the words that I'm saying about myself or to myself are not the way that God would talk about me, then why was I talking to myself that way? And so, again, whether it's trying to...
I'm not worthy.
Yeah. So if you're saying things about yourself that are puffing yourself up, if that's not how God would talk about you, then why are you doing that? But at the same time, if you're saying things that are diminishing you, if that's not how God would talk about you, then why? So it's more like take a moment to turn toward yourself a little bit and think about, what is it that I think about myself? What am I saying about myself? And is this how God would describe me? Is this what he says is true about me? Because that's where true humility comes from, is what your Creator says is true about you and you agreeing with him, because that is capital T truth about you. And so then you don't have to worry about elevating yourself to make yourself look better, or worrying about if other people are going to think you're arrogant and so you downplay things. You just be who he says you are. You be who he designed you to be. And that's authentic. That's real.
You know what else blew my mind in this whole little journey is when you're saying you're unworthy and you're not good enough, you're telling God that you know better than him. Oh my gosh. The first time I heard that, I was like, what? No, I would never. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's really what pride is saying I'm right and I know better. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite examples in the Bible of this is Gideon.
Good. I'm glad our brain cell still works.
Because if you don't know the story, I'm going to give you a very summarized version. But Gideon's country is overrun by enemies and he's hiding in a hole, like literally in a hole. And an angel of the Lord, which is Bible code for Jesus, shows up and says, mighty man of valor. That's what the angel of the Lord identifies Gideon as, the man hiding in a hole from his enemies. And Gideon basically says, no, you got the wrong guy. That he's essentially telling God, no, you're wrong. I know better. I'm right, which is why I'm hiding in this hole. And so to your point of, I never thought of it that way either until the first time I heard somebody use that story about Gideon to explain that. And I was like, oh no. So all this time,
right?
I've been telling God, whatever, dude, I know better. Oh my gosh.
Right? As if I already didn't feel bad enough about myself. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, on top of that, I was saying this. Like, oh man.
Oh, but isn't that lovely? Here you're feeling bad about yourself, and now here's more. Here's more to feel bad. Like, that's not helpful. Let's just heap pride on top of pride in all its forms. Yeah.
So one of the dangers of either truly believing this about yourself, if you're thinking that you are unworthy and you're not good enough, is that it keeps you from doing what God has called you to do. It's disobedient. God is calling us to do something and we're supposed to obey. And if we're choosing to believe this lie, or if we're choosing to avoid whatever the calling is out of fear or whatever reason it is, we are choosing to be disobedient. And that's something that we need to think about as well. And probably not a way that you might have seen it if this is all new information to you, because all of this at one point was new to me. And I had a lot of feelings because I didn't want to be disobedient. I didn't consider myself disobedient. But you take a minute to sit and really think about what we're saying, what we're believing, and how that affects our relationship with God. Because do we believe that God looks at us that same way? He doesn't. But we should think about that. I mean, maybe we can talk about why we believe some of these things. Because if we can understand why we do it or where it comes from, then we can work on not doing it anymore or thinking differently, repenting. That's what that means, guys, thinking differently. And we can start living that change, because once we think differently, we then live differently. And we can live in that truth. And honestly, we should just close the episode with that.
I was going to say.
Wasn't that amazing?
It's like, and we'll see you next time.
Stay tuned, guys. I still have more.
When you said you weren't trying to be disobedient, I think often, at least I hope, we're not setting out to disobey God. But a lot of times, I think it comes out of fear of looking foolish, fear of failure, feeling like I don't really have what it takes. And just like when you brought up Pitch Perfect, we will pre-reject before somebody can reject us, because we think somehow that's going to make it hurt less. That's going to make it at least a little bit better. No, rejection is rejection, whether you're pre-rejecting or getting rejected. You're either rejecting yourself or somebody else is rejecting you. And either way, rejection feels awful. And so if we're holding on to something, again, that's not authentic, that's not true about us, just so that we can try to protect ourselves from hurt again. And yeah, nobody wants to get hurt over and over. I mean, I'm not saying that like, you should want to have people reject you. It's just, again, though, if you look at it, I'm being responsible for myself. I'm trying to fix all of this because I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to make sure you don't reject me. And so I'm going to pre-reject. Do you notice the pronoun there is I the whole time? The focus is still on me, and that is still pride. And so if we can invite God into a conversation or listen to, and I don't mean audible voice from God, but listen to what it is that he says is true about us, we can find all kinds of scripture to affirm what God says is true about his kids, and you are one of his kids. There are so many ways to shift the focus off of what the problem is and instead seek truth, because if you shift your focus to the truth, then whatever version of pride starts to diminish, because you're not giving it all of your time and energy and effort of fighting against it. If you're instead focusing on what does God say is true, then pride it's almost like it just sort of disappears on its own. A
couple of things that you were saying in there on the pre-rejection, can definitely relate to that. Well, I think we all can relate to something at this point. I know I'm not alone here, but I come from a background of having a ton of guy friends.
Me too.
Since I love that. That's why we're friends. I recall my first group of friends in kindergarten. It was me and 3 guys. And I ran into one of them recently in DC, and it was the most fun thing for me. These were my best friends. And so as you get older, then you start thinking about dating and stuff. And I got to a point for pre-rejection where I was like, well, nobody likes me like that anyway. So I'm going to completely remove that as an option from the table. And we're just going to always only be friends. And I didn't think it was a bad thing. I'm just like, because to me, I looked at the positive. I don't need them to be in love with me. Just wanted them as friends. And I had closed a door to that possibility of possibly having a good relationship with somebody, better than the ones I ended up choosing, that's for sure. But it all came from pre-rejection, though. I didn't want to be hurt. Like, I don't want somebody laughing in my face for, I have feelings for somebody. And it's like, you say this out loud now, like as a kid, right? Like I feel so bad for little me that I really was so worried about that. Like I was going to get made fun of for liking somebody, and I didn't want that. Oh my gosh, that's so crippling. That's so sad. The level of insecurity in my life was absolutely crippling. But then you were also talking about fear of failure. I hear that often, and as an entrepreneur, that happens. Failure is part of the process, and I think sometimes people forget that. Progress is not linear. I've said that many times too, but I've had conversations with people before where they're afraid to step out and do something because what if they fail? And it's like, oh man, look at all the opportunities that we're missing because of that. If we can reframe the way that we see a situation, we're going to be able to see far more opportunities in that can lead us to a lot more growth, far more success in the areas that we're working in and being called into. And so it's very limiting. God has this great plan for us, but if we're sitting here like, no, I don't want to fail, we're not living out that calling and this great life that he has in mind for us. We're just like, no, God, right here, this is good. I've definitely heard a ton of that. And to some degree, I've definitely felt some of those things too. I'm trying to think what other reasons somebody might think that. Well, another one is you've been told that. Yeah. You've been screamed at since a very young age, which in my case was something that happened. Anything that I recall, at least from my identity, you end up holding on to the negatives more than the positives. And so the negative was so loud about who I was and who I was never going to be and what I wasn't worthy of. And so I held on to that as truth. And the sooner I accept it, the better it is, rather than continuing to cry about it. And then we move on, and this is who we are. And that's sad, you guys. It's sad. There is healing. But all of this was mind-blowing to me. And it was super helpful. It was very hard initially to wrestle with some of that and accepting that when I'm saying some of these things, I really am telling God that I know better and that he's wrong. And it's, wow, like what a visual. Oh, I feel bad. But you start working through some of that, and the other side of that for healing feels just so much better. It's very redeeming now that I'm stepping out into different areas and working in those areas with God. It's not just me doing it on my own, but I get so much satisfaction from doing these things. And the way I guess I look at it is just more like God chose me to do that through. He saw something in me about who I was and my personality that, you know what, I need her to do this. And that's just been super healing for me and very cool. And the fact that I can hold on to that and appreciate that and be happy about that is a very, very significant difference. Isn't it? It is just from where I was.
It's such a nicer way to live.
It is. Yeah. I'm not holding on to that because that's heavy. Yep. You start looking or feeling that low about yourself, that's heavy. And even if you're one of those that's puffing yourself up, I'm talking about mostly things that I can relate to, but if you're one of those that's puffing yourself up, you're probably getting exhausted too. Yeah. Because most of the times when that happens, you're lacking that validation somewhere. You're not feeling fulfilled somewhere. There's some need that's not being met. Yeah. And so you now are having to tell people what you are so they know, so they can recognize you and they can believe that about you. And we have it a little bit twisted because our identity comes from God and not others' opinions of us.
Whether it's fighting for a good opinion or trying to lower, again, either side of this, it's all coming back to pride. One of the things that you were saying about fear of failure, something that shifted for me was when Polly Hamp said, "There's no failure. There's only feedback."
Yeah, I love that.
It really helped a lot because really what's happening is our fear of failure is I'm trying something new and I'm afraid of what the outcome will be. But try something new and then you take the information, you take the outcome, you revamp whatever it is that you're doing and you try again. That's not failure. That's I gained new information and now I'm going to try again. Blew my mind the first time she said that. And that's another one definitely sticks in there.
So similarly to what Polly was saying is something that Roger had told us in the ministry. Hi, Roger. I don't even know if he listens to this, but if you do, hi, Roger. Challenges are just opportunities.
We didn't say hi to Polly.
Hi, Polly.
Hi, Polly. Anyway, sorry, Roger.
So Roger is the current ministry lead. I'm going to call you that, Roger. Ministry lead for our jail ministry. And so he started off with challenges are just opportunities. And man, the eye rolls that I would do at the beginning. And I'm like, ugh. And at the same time, I started reading this book called Unoffendable, which also recommend, and Winning the War in Your Mind, I also recommend that. Anyway, so all that was being introduced to me at the same time I was reading these books. At the same time, I was I wanted to look for a different way to look at things because I knew that the way I was looking at life and the world was incorrect. There was something missing and I wasn't seeing it the way God wanted me to see it. And so when I started looking at challenges or just opportunities, there really are opportunities. And maybe that opportunity is that you've identified something that's not working in that relationship, or maybe it's in a task that you're doing. Okay, well now let's be creative and find a new avenue. There's always something. And I found that to be super helpful in all aspects of life. Identifying that is going to open far more doors mentally, spiritually, physically. If we're holding on to all of the challenges and how hard things are, you can choose to hold on to it and get upset and fester on it, or you can choose to use it for good. God uses all our tragedies for something good. We have the same option. We have to make that choice. See the good, see how we can use what happened and do something good with it. People will start a business and close it and then start a new one. And then you have some people that are like, oh my gosh, they don't know what they're doing. You're not starting from nothing. You're using all that information that you've learned in that past experience, and now you're bringing that into the next thing. That's information you didn't have when you started that one before. So it's reframing how you see things. Don't let those naysayers pee in your Cheerios, you guys.
That needs to be on a t-shirt. So we've said a couple of different times that our identity comes from God. And so to trust him and to agree with him that what he says is true, it doesn't always necessarily feel entirely comfortable when he tells you something that is true about you. Because like with Gideon, he will often say something to you that sounds way nicer than how you talk to yourself or what you think about yourself. Or it'll sound too big, like somehow you're not equipped for it. How are you ever going to carry that out? And so I want to point out that often it feels uncomfortable in one form or another, but just because he reveals something true to you about yourself, it doesn't mean that now you are on your own and you have to go figure out how to do it. When God says something true about you, he doesn't then just leave you out to dry. He will continue to reveal more and more to you. He will show you how to walk that out. He is always equipping us to do whatever it is that he has designed us to do. But first, we have to know who we are. And then the doing is an overflow of who he says we are. And so whenever we say, your identity is from God, and he'll tell you, I just wanted to make sure that it didn't sound like all sunshine and rainbows, because ultimately it is, because whatever God says is true about you is going to be the most wonderful thing, but it will often feel like, what do you mean you call me whatever wonderful thing it is that he says is true about you? Because we have experienced things that are so painful and so hurtful, or we've diminished ourselves so much, or somebody else has diminished us so much, that when he says this kind thing, it's almost a shock to the system, but it's necessary because it breaks us out of that cycle of negative thinking or negative beliefs or things that just simply are not true about us. It's worth pursuing. And so if you feel like God starts to reveal something to you that feels too good to be true, ask the next question. Stay curious. Dive into that further with him, because he will not leave it all up to you.
Also, one thing I want to add is maybe ask yourself that question if you've ever been wrong about anything before, ever in your life, because probably. And so maybe there's a chance that there's something else happening that we didn't think about. There's something I read a while back, and it was that we live our life based on the truths that we believe based on our life experiences. That's not a full truth. That's not covering all the bases. This is our personal experience and our thoughts that went into that and what we received from what was attempted to be communicated. that's not a 100% picture. So there's a chance that there's something else there that we've missed. So maybe also consider that. And also, if you guys wanted to look up the story of Gideon, if you haven't, it's Judges chapters 6-8. And it goes into more detail about how Gideon really viewed himself when the angel of the Lord came to tell him that he was a mighty man of valor. And it's nice, guys. I definitely recommend reading through it because I think that a lot of us can resonate with that. And it's very spot on with what we're talking about today.
Okay, so I feel like we've definitely said more on the if we think lower of ourselves than the if we feel like we need to call attention to ourselves side of pride. And not that one is better or worse than the other or deserves more attention. It's just that's in our stories. Yeah. So that's just naturally where it's gone. But I did think of something, and again, it's not in the stereotypical sense of pride. It's the if I don't take care of me, then no one is going to, which can be a version of pride. Several years ago now, I was having my conversation time with God, and it was right around my birthday. And if you have been around me for any length of time, you know that I absolutely love birthdays, not just mine, everybody else's birthdays too. I just think birthdays are so fun because it is the day that God decided that the world gets to meet you. And why would you not love that? So my birthday is coming around, and I am very focused on what are we going to do for my birthday. I was the kid and the adult who still does the countdown to my birthday. I love my birthday. And so I was really focused on what are we going to do for my birthday? What are we going to do? And I was talking to my husband about it, and then I was having a conversation with God about it, and God revealed that deep in there that I wasn't aware of was this belief that if I didn't arrange something for my birthday, then nobody else would pay attention to it, because the belief even underneath that is that I'm not worth it, that the friends that I have don't really care, which is not true at all about my friends. I have fabulous friends, but somewhere in there, deep down in there, I believed that nobody was really going to care, nobody was really going to pay attention, and so I had to arrange for myself. And so I shed some tears with God, and that's great. And then I talked to John, and I told him about my conversation with God, and he lovely, of course, and affirmed that that's not true, which was helpful. But anytime you hear truth from God, it's even more helpful. And so I told John, I'm not going to make arrangements for my birthday because I really did believe that I had to do it myself. And so in a strange way, that is a form of pride, because it's, again, an overfocus on self. And while it wasn't me being the typical definition of arrogant, it was still, I have to elevate myself or no one's going to pay attention. No one's actually going to care. And not true. And I did not. And since then, I have not made arrangements for my birthday, and people still want to celebrate my birthday.
Yeah, her birthday this year was a ton of fun, you guys. And this is really interesting because I don't celebrate my birthday. And so it's just different sides of the coin. Because, yeah, a lot of it came from that, too. Like, who am I? Why am I going to make a big deal about my birthday to do these things? So I do go out with my mom on my birthday, and I get to pick, like, a good restaurant.
Nice.
So, and you guys that know me, you know I love food, so it's definitely, we're not going to Fuddruckers. Nothing against Fuddruckers. I like Fuddruckers. I love Fuddruckers, but it's got to be something super delicious and a place that I don't get to frequent often. Yeah. And so, and that's like my special thing that I do for my birthday.
Nice. So whatever way pride has shown up for you, it's an over focus on self. It's either this idea that you have to take care of things, you have to arrange things, you have to elevate yourself. If it's more of the false humility, no, I'm not worth it, don't pay attention, don't look at me. Whichever way it has shown up for you, we encourage you to take some time to, if you don't have a relationship with God, talk to the people who you know are in your corner, the people who love you, and they can help reflect back to you what is true also. If you do have a relationship with God, He will absolutely speak truth to you. And that's realizing that there has been some pride in your life is step one, for sure. We have to realize that it's there, but then go to another source, whether it's family and friends, God, all of that, however it works for you. Invite somebody else into the conversation, because we don't see ourselves clearly and we don't see others clearly all the time. And so having somebody else be involved in that process with you is going to be immensely helpful. And I will 100% guarantee that if you ask God, he will tell you some pretty wonderful things about you, and he will not then leave you to figure it out for yourself. He will equip you. He will show you more details. He is along for the ride forever with you. And he actually wants to continue to reveal truth to you about who he is and who he says you are. And I promise it's a really fun ride. So hop on board.
It is a ride. And it is fun. It is fun. So thanks for joining us today, you guys. I hope that this conversation was helpful in some way, reflective maybe even. If you have any thoughts or comments, please feel free to put them in the comments so that we can read, because we want to know how it's going with you guys too. So that's it for today.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
I'm Denise Acosta.
I'm Brooke Ackerman.
And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. Not sure how you found us today, but be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on any other episodes. And you can find us on most podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music.
If anything we said today resonated or got you thinking deeper, share it with a friend, leave a comment, or shoot us an email over at prodigalpeas@gmail.com. If you didn't know, this podcast is a merge of both of our brands. I am Misfit of Creation, a soul food ministry. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. I also have an Etsy shop where you can find downloadable tools that will help you grow in your walk with God. And that is misfitofcreation.etsy.com. And if you're looking to be a monthly supporter, you can also find me on Patreon.
My mental and emotional health coaching practice is Blueprint Heart and Mind Coaching, and you can find me at blueprintheartandmind.com, where I have a blog, and you can also make an appointment with me. And you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
I think I get it now. I need to be myself, because a copycat can only do so well. Love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan. I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission, I got some fruition. You down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating. I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first. He been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live.
We didn't take a selfie with our peas.
Ka-chow. Ka-chow.
Oh, that's definitely going in. Ka-chow. I'm going to zoom in on that.